In November 2020, Kadian Nelson had an urge to do something sinister, and his actions has changed one little girl's perception and outlook on life in such a significant way, damaging her potentially forever. Luckily for that girl, on the day when the events unfolded, she had some angels overlooking her that, if not around, this whole crime could have turned out from a horror tale into something more of a nightmare that could have been endured for days, who knows. Sometimes situations require not looking away or turning a blind eye, but to take and do the complete opposite, and one must intervene. It's not to say we should be thankful, as ideally crimes of this nature shouldn't happen, and although disgusting, it's just the world we live in, brother. However, we are truly blessed, as for some people still go that extra mile and intervene when they suspect something is just not right, and we should all be thankful for that. Due to the shocking nature of what happened, viewer discretion is advised. So whether you're a Grimmer or a Reaper, I am the Grim Reaper, so let's get it on. This is the story of angels are all around, sometimes. It was 3rd November 2020, where the day was starting like normal for one young girl, who was only 13 at the time, in Merton, southwest London, heading to school in Mitcham. The horrific abduction and what was about to unfold was caught on security camera slightly after 7 AM, where you can clearly see Kadian Nelson creep up rather fast upon the young teenager and abducted her in plain daylight in this horrific attack. The video clearly shows one of two people who had phoned the police already challenge and persist in challenging Kadian Nelson whilst filming for protection until they was confident of the situation and that themselves or the young girl involved was not at any risk. The footage is very, very disturbing and is unsettling, so viewer discretion is advised. Video footage had been circulating on social media quite virally, with over 1 million shares, showing Kadian Nelson approaching and abducting the victim that provoked an enraged reaction from the public. There was reports of vigilante groups
Let her go! What are you doing with her?
Bro, this is my sister, bro. Move.
What are you doing with her?
Bro, this is man's family, bro. Move. Are you not? This is man's family. Move from me, bro.
Is that the same one that just walked past us, Mum?
This is man's family, bro. Move from me.
So what are you doing in the corner with her? Are you okay?
Hey, girl. Hey. Hey.
I'm following you.
Bro, why are you fucking stalking man, bro?
Are you okay? Do you know him?
There was reports of vigilante groups who formed and was on the prowl for the individual from a picture, a named individual, that of one Kadian Nelson, who was 26 years of age from Tooting, South London, that was released to the public with regard to being a suspect that was wanted for further questioning and aiding in their investigation. Although Detective Inspector Laura Semple said the victim and her family are receiving support from specially trained officers, this was not in the slightest comforting to family members and residents in the local areas, who started to begin their own investigations, knocking on various doors and scouting for areas nearby. It was at one point where an unmarked police car was stationary outside Kadian Nelson's house, where two individuals was asked politely to pass any knowledge that they may have to the police via the 101 contact service number, and not to bring attention to themselves and the unmarked officer's presence who was keeping an eye on the property. The police had to go as far as to enforce an emergency Section 60 for the entire Merton and Wandsworth boroughs in relation to these vigilante groups who had been knocking on various people's doors trying to find the person of interest. Under Section 60, this gives police the powers to search anyone at all and also to instruct them to leave the area. It is a suspicionless search where the police can act without having reasonable suspicion. It may be invoked without prior community notification, in the essence where the police reasonably believe that incidents involving serious violence may take place in any locality in police area and it is necessary to give authorization to prevent their occurrence. This lasts for an initial 24 hours, although it can be extended a further 24 hours if necessary. Section 60 allows any uniformed constable to stop any pedestrian or any vehicle driver and any passengers and search them and all their property for offensive weapons or dangerous instruments, regardless of whether there are any grounds for suspecting possession of said articles. This is what makes Section 60 a suspicionless search. Kadian Nelson, after fleeing the crime scene area, fled to a hotel in Baker Street where he had booked a room. It's not sure whether he had already pre-booked this, however, if it was, or even if it wasn't, he still had some sort of sense to distance himself as much as possible from the crime scene to try and materialise some sort of alibi. Because remember, this person lived locally, after all. He then proceeded to visit various shops in and around London before going back to drop some items off and then later returned to Merton. It was unclear whether he knew the police was searching for him at the time. As for his motives of returning back to the local area, it's unclear why he did so. What do you think? Why did he distance himself so far, yet to only later return going back on the same day? Let us know in the comments below what you think his reasoning was. Returning back to the scene was probably one of the worst mistakes Kadian Nelson did afterwards. Eventually he was going to get traced and caught, but it may have given him a little more time out and not being captured, potentially trying to establish more of an alibi, perhaps. It was back in Tooting at 8:02 p.m. when the police arrested Kadian Nelson on the same day the attack took place, after being recognised by a member of the public in Robinson Road, Tooting, from footage published on social media, who informed the police of his whereabouts. This was just over a mile from where the attack originally took place. The Section 60 order was to remain in place, however, despite them catching him. Kadian Nelson remained silent throughout the entire interrogation and was charged and remanded in custody. Detective Inspector Simon Sherlock said, "What Nelson did that day was utterly sickening. The young victim was going about her day as usual on her way to school when Nelson approached and subjected her to a terrifying ordeal. His actions were calculated, evil, and depraved." Assistant Commissioner Nick Epgrave from the Met Police released a statement adding, "I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to the member of the public who intervened and provided support to the victim and our officers during their investigation into this appalling attack. Rape and other serious sexual offences are devastating crimes that can have a lasting impact on victims, their families and communities. I would urge anyone who has been a victim to please report it. We will do all we can to investigate so that perpetrators are brought to justice and the victims receive the appropriate support. We have specially trained officers who work closely with highly skilled specialists and empathetic partners to ensure that anyone who has experienced rape or sexual assault can have the access they need." Now that the police had their suspect, who had been charged and remanded in custody, things could now progress towards a trial. On Monday 26 April 2021, Kadian Nelson, who was 26 at the time, carried out a monstrous act of kidnapping and raping a minor and appeared at Kingston Crown Court. In the trial, Kadian Nelson admitted kidnapping, rape, making a threat to kill. The story of how it all happened in Mitcham, southwest London, was told to a disturbed and shocked court. Kadian Nelson was prowling around the area whilst wearing a pair of yellow rubber gloves some 20 minutes prior to the attack. Once he spotted his victim, he proceeded to follow the young schoolgirl early that morning, around 7 a.m. She was on her phone discussing with a friend about their homework at the time. Kadian Nelson crept up towards her at one point on North Place, Collier's Wood, and then put one hand over her mouth extremely tight and another hand on her head to subdue her to his willing. He then went on to threaten to kill her if she didn't do exactly what he wanted. She reluctantly obeyed and was forced and dragged to walk towards an alleyway. She was still connected on her call to her friend, and it was heard that the young schoolgirl pleaded with him by saying, "I'll pay you, take all my money, take all my belongings, just leave me alone." She was told to take off her coat and school blazer and told her to kneel on the floor, of where she was then forced by Kadian Nelson to give oral sex, violating the young schoolgirl. It was disclosed that a member of the public phoned the police, stating that her daughter, who was 10 years old, had witnessed Kadian grabbing the young schoolgirl. Just moments before Kadian was interrupted, he told the young schoolgirl to put her blazer and jacket on, and then made her wear his hoodie top. Kadian Nelson was interrupted by the woman who called the police and her sister, who stepped into the alleyway and shouted, "What are you doing with her?" Kadian replied that the young schoolgirl was his sister and pulled the hood of the coat down over her face and attempted to walk away with her. The two women pursued and walked towards him whilst filming on their mobile phone. Fortunately, the young schoolgirl signalled that she needed help, and Nelson fled the scene in a hurry, leaving the young schoolgirl wearing his jacket. The prosecution team produced various evidence of proof that showed without doubt that they had the right person in the docket being accused of this monstrous attack on this young schoolgirl. This included video footage, DNA evidence from a lighter and tobacco pouch that was found in his pocket from the jacket that he left the schoolgirl wearing when he had fled the scene in a hurry. Identification by the schoolgirl in an ID parade. Due to the overwhelming evidence against Kadian, he pleaded guilty to the offences as accused of. Fortunately, due to this, the young victim was and will be spared the ordeal of giving evidence personally in court that reliving any such horrific attack and the lead up of giving evidence have had a profound and lasting impact on the victim. When Kadian was sent to Wandsworth Prison Jail to await sentencing, he was battered by a fellow inmate within hours after this admittance of rape and kidnapping of the young schoolgirl of only 13. He was branded a paedophile. He was rushed for treatment in hospital for an injury to his cheek. It was mentioned by prison service spokeswoman that the police was investigating the matter. If the police can't give justice, let the criminals handle it, huh? As for payback, ooh, just a little bit, as Gina G would say, but ooh, a little bit more? Well, we may have to wait for that conclusion. Kadian Nelson, who was now 27, later appeared in court to face sentencing at the same court on August 13, 2021. The young schoolgirl, who was 13 at the time, read out an impact statement that was not only of what happened, but also indicating that it had affected her with the ability to do very simple everyday things now, such as go to school or be able to be independent. So who was Kadian Nelson? He had prior convictions for drug-related offences. He was also previously convicted to making threats with an offensive weapon. His defence team did mention that he had no prior sexual offence convictions. The judge, John Lodge, sentenced Kadian Nelson to a 12-year jail term with an extension period of 8 years. He will serve a minimum of 12 years before being eligible for release, however. He said that this shameful and shocking incident could have been even worse if it was not for the two women who intervened whilst the assault was taking place. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Kadian Nelson. Do you think he got what he deserved? Do you think it was too much, a sentence, or not enough? What would you have done if you observed such an horrific attack unfolding right before your eyes? Could you have done something differently? And remember, if you liked this video, please do take a moment to like and subscribe, as that would really help us out to produce more and more content. Don't forget also to hit that notifications so you're always up to date with some quirky told crime. Until the next one, I am the Grim Reaper and I am out.